Hello everyone, my name is Susan Tayo. I'm a parenting coach and I also call myself as a youth ambassador. I love the teenagers, I love the youth because of my own experience growing up. I'm also a chartered accountant, a mother, and I've been married for 25 years. Okay, I said parenting, and some people will say, oh, I don't have any kids. But is that all parenting is all about? Parenting is guiding and nurturing, from babies to adults. So if you are a guardian, or even an older sibling, or an aunt or an uncle, then you should learn about parenting. Because it's at this phases, the way you guide and nurture someone that makes up who the person is in the final analysis. So when I say parenting, I don't only mean a father and a mother that have kids, I also mean all the adults that have people under them that they guide and nurture. So you could be a guardian, you could be a relative, but you are also a parent. You could even just be an older sibling, but you have to act as parents too. And even when your parents are not there, you're also a parent. Now, why am I passionate about parenting? Actually, growing up, I felt that I grew up quite okay, but I felt that if I had more mentoring, I could have turned out even better. I would have made less mistakes. And so growing up, I felt to myself that I was going to help to mentor anybody that comes around me. I was going to help to become their friends. And that I kept up with. But then another angle came into it. By the time I became a parent, I had my children quite successively. I mean, they were all close, their ages were close by, close together. And then they were normal, quiet. I grew up being a quiet person. I hardly ever misbehaved or was ever disobedient. So I just expected my children would turn out the same way. And they were actually for a while, until my first got into her teenage. I think about 13 or 14. And I discovered a different person entirely. By the time I say one, she said three things together. I'm telling her to do something, she's asking me why. And I felt to myself that what's happening? What's this? I actually felt exasperated. And like many of us do, the next thing was to put my hand on my head and say, the Yoruba word for that. But instinctively, I knew that was not the solution. And then I now had to research. I looked for books, Nigerian books that would teach about parenting. I didn't find. I went on the internet and I researched and I found godly and ungodly things. I found a site saying do this, another one saying don't do it. It was quite confusing. So, but I was able to bring some things out. And then it was like trial and error. And with the wisdom God gave, I prayed also. So I said, I normally tell people that she was more like a guinea pig. It was win some, lose some with her. But finally, we were out of it. And then the brother was coming alongside too. I became a better parent. And I said to myself, I read a lot. People had asked me, when would you write? You're always reading and reading and reading and reading. And I said to myself that the very first book I'll publish should be about parenting, because this will help parents, to know how to deal with their teenagers. I mean, actually, I said the teenage age is 8. Because if you are waiting until I turned for 13, 14 before I went into puberty, now they start from 8, 9. And we're talking about the hormones here. It's the hormones that actually determine the teenage attitude. And so it's not something that you wait and say, okay, I don't even have a teenager around me. As long as you have somebody who is 7 or 8, and it's even going to get worse, then you begin to learn how to parent them. Initially, parenting can be instinctive, but as the child grows, it becomes a learned thing. We can't sit back and say, I gave birth to this child, so I'm the mother and the father. Otherwise, it will not turn out the right people. Last time I talked about the research I had to do just to ensure that I parent my children properly. I wanted to bring up godly children. I wanted children that not only I will be proud of them, that anywhere they go, people will say, yes, these are good children. They have parented them well. I knew it was not just about what I do. I know I would have to rely on God also, but I had to play my part. And as I was researching, I discovered that there were different phases of parenting. Remember I talked about some stages being instinctive. I discovered that actually we think that what we do when they're babies and we nurture them is all we should do throughout. But that's a different phase. I discovered, I mean, if you go online, you'll find that we have different schools of thought. And some will say the phases can be at 6, some will say 4, some will say 3. Now, I've gone through parenting. My youngest is going to be 19. And so I have decided to take the one that I think is the most practical one. I've even left out the baby stage. I mean, because it's instinctive when a mother has a child, she knows that she needs to breastfeed the baby. The baby would cry when the baby is uncomfortable. Maybe baby needs to eat, baby needs to be changed. That's fine. Most mothers can do that. Anybody around knows about that. So I've left that off in the stages of parenting. So, but I want to start, the ones I have picked are 4 stages. And we have the commander stage, we have the consultant stage, we have the counselor stage, and we have the coach stage. Now, when I say commander, it's like you think of the commander. Now you can have that phase when the children are between 2 and maybe 5, 6, because then they look up to you for everything. You tell them, don't put this on, don't touch that, this is not good for you. They only, it's whatever you tell them that they take in. You could even tell them that the moon is green and they'll say, oh, okay, they'll go back and say, yes, the moon is green. So that's the commander stage. That is fine for that stage. And at that stage, children look up to you and you have to be a very good example. You need to be around them a lot of the time because they're going to have a lot of questions to ask you. So you're like that commander there who is telling them this, no, yes, yes, no, and that. So let's take the phase 2, the parenting of parenting, and that's the coach stage. You can also call it interpretive stage. And here you're trying to teach your children from direction to self-direction. At this time, they're already between 6 and 10 years old, depending on how fast your child is. And what you're trying to, also you're trying to move them from discipline to self-discipline. Because when they were younger, you had to tell them, don't mess up that place, and then you clean after them. Don't do this. And because they were still young, there are some things you let go for them. But at this stage, you want to teach them so that they can also be self-directed themselves, and like gather their toys together when they play with the toys, like when they finish eating, take their plates to the kitchen. In fact, you could have a stool in the kitchen for their heights. You could teach them to wash their plates. Just make sure that they keep harmful things away, depending on their height and how mature they are at any point in time. You also teach them how to speak and how to be respectful of elders. Before now, they were probably too young, but now they're getting old enough. And even at the phase 1, when they can talk, you already talk to them about their bodies. Here you talk a little bit more, about how they're made, how God has made them, how they should appreciate themselves, and how they relate with other people. And so this is just the coach phase that you want to teach them, you want to show them, and you want to nurture them to actually become, to get into their stable teenagehood. We move into the third phase, and that's the counselor stage. That's the one that I'm actually really passionate about, because the first 2 stages, win some, lose some, you may not make too many mistakes because it's straightforward. But you move to the counselor. What you don't know, you can't give to anybody, because you're now moving to a stage where you can't tell them this is what you should do. They're trying to become adults. The counselor stage, won't be anything from 11, 12 to 16, 17, depending on how fast your child is. And at this point, you can't just say this is what they should do. They need to know why they should do it, and you need to leave it out for them. And this is where you want to teach them, you want to move them from dependence to independence. You want them to know that they need to do well in school because they have a future. You want them to be able to write their goals because they're now beginning to know this is what I would like to do. And peer influences will surface. In fact, the peer influences will surface right from the coach stage, but it's worse here. It becomes very strong because at this stage they're no longer young children, but they're not fully adults either. Sometimes they're even as tall as we are, and we think that we can relate to them as adults, or our expectations of them go very high. This stage I can deal with for the next 4 sessions, and I think we're going to take it bit by bit, because this is a stage that I call the very unique part of parenting. In fact, it's the toughest phase of parenting teenagers. Remember, the new teenage age is 8, so don't wait until you're 13. If you wait until you're 13, then it's too late. And this is a time that you really want to get to know your children. Why? Because they are becoming an entity on their own. They're no longer, they're trying to have their own identity. Now, your daughter may not turn out the same as you. She may not like the things that you like. She may not want to become a doctor because you're a doctor. She has what she wants to become. And here we need to understand that we don't push them. Because before now, you just tell they are teaching them, to follow your values and to do the things that you expect them to do. But here, the understanding is that this is somebody whose God has created. This is somebody who has his or her own life. This is somebody who is unique in his or her own nature. And this is somebody who has to go through some phases, some things to actually turn out to be the adults that he or she needs to be. So in this stage, we need a lot of patience. A lot of patience to deal with them. Now, I'm not saying that we should take anything from them. It's firm but loving parenting. Firm, loving, and consistent parenting is what will work at this stage. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. We're going to miss it. Now, the hormones have kicked in. There's some things that you need to differentiate between just defiance and change of attitude due to hormones. They're two different things. A normal teenage would not relate with you like they related with you in the past 2, 3, 4 years. They would question you more. They could stand and look at you face eyeball to eyeball. It's not a time to get exasperated like I did when I first got into my first teenage parenting. It's a time to actually understand, and that's where we need to study, we need to read, we need to attend seminars. It's a phase we need to have been prepared for. If we're prepared for it, when we get there, there are things that you should just smile and forget. But if you're not prepared for it, you get to this stage and you think you should tie your wrapper and make it very tight because you think, okay, we're two of us cannot be captains in the boat, and that's not the issue here. It's a time that you want to actually develop friendship with them. Now they have become, they're moving into their own identity. They're discovering themselves. But a lot of us parents want to hold all that control that we have had before now. We want to be able to decide what they wear, how they make up, where they go, when they come back. It's good to have rules, but we need to be careful because we can't impose ourselves on them. So we need to be able to release control. It's control versus responsibility. So you release some control and you expect some measure of responsibility from them. And then this is where you allow them to take responsibility for their own actions. Now, it's not a stage where you cover for them for everything, because you are allowing them to make their own decisions. And that's what they need to understand, because they are now becoming independent people. So when they make the decisions, they also need to grow up enough to be responsible for whatever comes out of that decision. And say, for instance, a child does not reach, maybe they have a test, and then she doesn't do well or he doesn't do well in the test, and the child comes home, you know very well that the child did not read, and they're trying to say, oh, sorry, next time. No, you need to allow them to take that responsibility. Oh, I'm sorry about it, but you remember you were supposed to study, but you didn't study. Now, so whatever they do, allow them to take responsibility. For many times, it's painful for us as parents to not allow them to take that responsibility, but we need to leave them, because that's how they can grow up to be stable adults in the future. At this point, I want to give tips on what to do when parenting teenagers to young adults. They're just tips, and then you need to know your own child. We're going to get into the parenting phase where we need to know the personalities of our different children, because even parenting for different personality types will differ. But generally for teenagers, you need to know that you do not nag them. They don't like nagging. The way they react to us makes us want to repeat and shout and emphasize what we want them to do. But you're not going to get anything done. The more you nag, the more they draw away from you. So when you need to communicate with a teenager or a young adult, just say one sentence, 1, 2 sentences, and leave the place. It's not a time to look at their faces. I remember that I'm a very sensitive person, and I remember one time I was growing up, and I would make those faces and all that, or I'll get sensitive when somebody makes faces. And my mother said to me, it's the person who looks at the face that will know how the face is. So this is a time that you don't look too much into their faces, because if you look at the faces, you will see all sorts of things that will get you irritated. Just make your point and move. That's a tip for this stage. And also, it's a stage where you minimize your rules. When my second daughter now got to the age where they like to make phone calls at night, I could easily say, I'll take your phone and then you go sleep. and then she doesn't have a phone. She will get to school and she will do her night calls. She might even have another phone that she will use after I've taken her phone. So it's not, you don't make so much rules. But what did I do then? Sometimes in the morning, because I know she's making night calls, I just ask, you see, you're feeling look, you want to sleep. And I just make a joke out of it. She knows that I'm aware that she was making calls. She sees that she cannot concentrate during the day. And she's beginning to learn that it may not be best for her. I never one day said, you must not make night calls. But it didn't take her enough that she stopped. And she will switch off her phone and nobody can call her night. And the following day you hear them calling, we wanted to call you and say, I'm sorry, I had to sleep. So we need to keep our rules few. We should choose our battles. You can't fight every battle. You can't fight if you want to fight every battle, you are going to become two wives of a husband, like I almost did when I was parenting my first child. It's not everything that you must comment on. Now, their dress sense is going to be different from yours. It's just a given. We're in different generations. And so you cannot insist that they dress the way you dress. Now, I know that there are points where they shouldn't go beyond. I mean, there are some limits. But within that limit, you may not love it, but you let it be. It's just a face and it will pass. When my daughter started making up a lot, then I never even used makeup. Now they say, oh, she has makeup. Yes, it's true. I've learned that. I mean, once in a while, it's good. But I didn't criticize and say, no, you must not make up. How old are you when you're making up? You know what I did? Sometimes when she does makeup, I look for something that I like. Usually, I may not like the whole face, but there'll be something that looks nice there. And then I'll say, oh, this looks nice. And then sometimes I'll tell her, she was still quite young, I'll tell her, okay, come make me up. I'm not a makeup person, but come make me up. I was trying to communicate. I was trying to ensure that we bond and not quarrel. And then I'll dress up and say, what do you think? And she says, okay, no, match this, match that, and all that. Before long, she would ask me when she dresses up, Mommy, what do you think? And that's how we went through that level. And I said, okay, that's fine. And you see, whenever she's not wearing the makeup, I commend her a lot. And I say, oh, I love your natural face. It's beautiful. I didn't say don't make up. I love your natural face. And then she smiles. I say, yes, it's really nice. You know, when I was in university and all that, we talk about it, we joke about it. And then she got to a place where makeup was not a daily thing anymore. And then she's comfortable with herself. If she's going out and she's not making up, that does not make her a different person. She's just herself. If she wants to make up, she makes up. And so we need to be conscious. We need to act. We need to be wise at this stage. Otherwise, we will not get anything done. One other thing is that we should not hold them responsible for what you had finished talking about yesterday. Hang on. It's a phase. And it will pass. It's not a phase where you say, yes, I told you this 2 weeks ago, and you're still doing the same thing. No. In fact, the growing child, the teenager of yesterday, that lady of yesterday, may be a completely different person today. So you're trying to criticize for something she or he had done yesterday. For today, yeah, she's lost. So today is a new day. Always open a new slate for them. Develop amnesia. That really helps me a lot. Develop amnesia. And that's my teenager today is a new person. We have forgotten about the things that were done wrong yesterday. We're taking a new slate. It helps them to grow. It teaches them, how to even relate to the outside world. By the time you're saying you did this yesterday, you did that yesterday, they're going to be remembering when they grow up, oh, you need to hold people for past actions. So there are tips that I think that if a lot of us would, listen to and will practice, it will help them to become the people that God has created them to be. I am so passionate about this teen age because if you get it right, you would have your children with you for long. And they will come back and say thank you. If you get it wrong, you may lose your children. Sometimes it's forever. Sometimes you are lucky that when they get into the mid-20s, they would come back to you. But it doesn't always happen. And then you'll have lost that phase where they really needed you the most. Because it's a phase that they turn to their peers, the peer pressure. And then God help you if the people they're moving with are people that have negative values. People that have values that, that's not the kind of values that you wanted in your family. So that's why we need to. And one thing that I haven't mentioned before is that by the time you're even starting a family, you must have your family values. And from when they can speak as young as they are, you keep repeating your family values. The Tyers do not do this. We believe in humility. We believe in being grateful at all times. So you develop your family values and imbibe that and always show them a very good example. Now, enough about that phase of parenting. I told you it's a phase I'm passionate about. I can always come back to that. And we still talk about it more and more in some of the series. Let's move on to the consultant phase. Now your child is an adult, 18 and above. And by God's grace, you're able to navigate the teen years properly. So you still have your child with you. What happens at the consultant stage? It's no longer active parenting. The time for active parenting is past. In fact, in the counselor stage, we said counselor. That means that it's no longer as active as the other stages. But in the consultant stage, it completely changes. This is not a stage where you tell them what to do. You actually ask until they ask for your advice. You pray for them. And then you can say, may I help? Would you want us to have a chat? It's not longer a stage where you start saying yes or no and all that. You talk to them. Can we have a chat? Can we go out? What's happening with you now? You just ask them questions and allow them be. And then when they tell you, you can now decide, would you like me to give you an advice? And you give advice. That's just all you do at this time. It's no longer, I see some parents, even when their children are 18, 19, they're still shouting. They still have the shouting spree at home. You've lost that time for it. This is not the time for it. This is a formed child. So the only thing you can do is be a friend here and be available. Availability is the key. So anytime they look for you, be there for them. Because sometimes they'll just call, Mommy, can I speak with you? Make sure that you leave everything you're doing, sit down and hear them speak. And then give them the advice that you need to give them. Thank you for listening to me. I love it when it's interactive. I would like you to drop a line, ask questions, and send me a direct message, a DM, and I would respond. It helps when we can talk about it. I'd even like to know what your experiences are, either as a parent or as a teenager or as a young adult. Share your experiences with me. Let's share experiences together and let's talk about it. I'd really be grateful for that.